It was the summer of my cousin's wedding when everything changed. I wasn't expecting anything unusual that day. The hall was filled with laughter, music, and chatter. Guests in shimmering dresses moved around, and I was just another face in the crowd. That's when I saw him. He was standing near the entrance, not laughing or dancing like everyone else. At first glance, I thought he was one of the helpers. He was dressed simply, carrying trays, helping elders find their seats, and adjusting decorations when no one noticed. But there was something different about him. He wasn't just doing it out of duty. He was doing it with kindness. Later, my cousin introduced him. "This is Armin, my childhood friend," she said casually. He smiled, and for a moment, the noise around us faded. He wasn't the most handsome man in the hall, but his presence was undeniable. We spoke briefly. I asked if he was tired after helping everyone. He just smiled and said, "When you do something with love, it never feels heavy." His words stayed with me the whole night. The next day, my aunt whispered to me, "That boy, Armin, was asking about you." My heart raced. I barely knew him, yet something inside me wanted to know more. A week later, he came to our house with his parents. No drama, no flashy entrance. Just a small bouquet of lilies in his hand and honesty in his eyes. "I may not be rich," he said softly, "but I promise to be loyal. If you give me a chance, I'll spend my life making you happy." I didn't even think twice. Something inside me said yes before my mind could protest. And just like that, I agreed to marry the very first guy I had ever truly met. Everyone called me crazy. "You don't even know him properly," they warned. But deep down, I knew sometimes the heart recognizes what the mind takes years to understand. Our wedding was a whirlwind. Within a month, everything was set. I barely had time to process that I was about to marry a man I had spoken to only a handful of times. My friends teased me. "You're writing the riskiest love story ever." I laughed, but deep down, I was nervous too. On the day of the wedding, I walked into the hall dressed in red, my heart pounding. Armin stood there waiting. He wasn't nervous. His calmness reassured me. When our eyes met, he smiled, and suddenly all my fears melted away. The ceremony was simple but filled with warmth. My parents, who had initially worried about my decision, were surprisingly supportive. They said they saw honesty in his character. The same honesty I had felt as we exchanged vows. Armin whispered, "I may not be your dream prince, but I promise I'll never let you regret this choice." His words made my eyes well up. That night, when all the noise of the wedding was over, and we were finally alone, I looked at him and asked, "Do you think we rushed into this?" He chuckled and replied, "Sometimes the best decisions are made in moments, not years." It was the beginning of our uncertain journey, one where love had to be built, not assumed. Marriage wasn't the fairy tale I thought it would be. The first few months were filled with challenges. Armin's income was modest, and we lived in a small apartment. I had been used to comfort at my parents' home, and suddenly, everything felt like a sacrifice. There were days when I questioned my decision. My friends flaunted expensive gifts from their husbands, while Armin saved every penny to pay bills. Sometimes we argued over little things: grocery money, electricity bills, or even my longing for the life I had left behind. But then there were moments that reminded me why I chose him. Like the time I fell sick, and he stayed up all night by my side, feeding me soup and checking my temperature every hour. Or when I cried from missing my old life, and instead of getting angry, he simply held me and said, "We'll build our own beautiful life, step by step." Slowly, I realized that wealth wasn't the foundation of marriage. Understanding was. His small gestures, his constant support, and his unwavering loyalty mattered more than any riches. Still, the struggles were real. Relatives whispered that I had made a mistake, that I could have married someone richer. Their words hurt, but every time I looked at Armin, I knew I had chosen love over convenience. One day, life tested us in the harshest way. Armin lost his job. He came home with tired eyes and said softly, "I don't know how we'll manage for a while." My heart sank. Fear crept in. How would we pay rent? How would we survive? For a week, he searched endlessly for work but returned with rejection each time. I could see the weight on his shoulders. One evening, I found him sitting silently, staring into space. I placed my hand on his and said, "We'll face this together. I didn't marry your job. I married you." Those words brought tears to his eyes. For the first time, he hugged me tightly and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me." I took a part-time job tutoring kids while he continued his search. It wasn't easy, but we managed. Through those days of struggle, our bond grew stronger. We laughed at our small victories, like paying the rent on time or being able to afford a dinner outside once in a while. Then, finally, after months of effort, Armin got a stable job at a reputable firm. He wasn't just happy for himself, he was happy for us. He said, "This isn't just my success, it's ours." It was in those testing times that I realized the strength of our marriage. Love wasn't proven in the easy days, it was proven in the storms. Years have passed since that first meeting at my cousin's wedding. Today, as I sit on the balcony of our modest but warm home, watching Armin play with our little daughter, I can't help but smile. I remember the warnings, the doubts, the whispered gossip that I was foolish for marrying the first guy I met. But as I look at my family now, I know I made the right choice. We don't live in luxury, but we live in love. Armin still brings me white lilies every anniversary, just like the first bouquet he gave me. He still holds my hand when life gets tough. And he still looks at me with the same honest eyes that made me say yes years ago. If I waited, searched for perfection, or listened to society, maybe I would have found someone wealthier, someone more glamorous. But I doubt I would have found someone who loved me as deeply and purely as Armin does. And so, when people ask me, "You really married the first guy you met?" I smile and reply, "Yes, and it was the best decision of my life." Because sometimes, the heart knows the truth before the mind can even question.